This week, over 500 general practices will commence distribution of Pfizer.
The supplies increasing, the points of presence increasing, 320 new GP points of presence for Pfizer established this week. We backed the doctors of Australia, the GPs of Australia, to deliver these vaccines.
GPs have been the backbone of the federal rollout of vaccines. And ever since AstraZeneca, then Pfizer, became available, our leaders have been telling us they would be shared equitably across the community, with the most vulnerable receiving them first.
They're being distributed on a per capita basis. The vaccines are being distributed to all of the states and territories on a per capita basis, those uplifts.
That hasn't always gone to plan. It has taken much, much longer than expected to vaccinate highly vulnerable groups like aged care residents and those who care for them. In the case of Indigenous communities, rather than being at the front of the line, the national vaccination rate among First Nations people remains below the national average. And there is the contentious question of why Australia still did not have more access to a suite of vaccines earlier than it has. The slow rollout has left us vulnerable to breakouts of the Delta variant. Politically, it has left the Prime Minister vulnerable to the anger of Australians who polling shows blame him for seemingly never-ending lockdowns in southeastern Australia in 2021. An analysis of publicly available data, however, raises more questions about the way vaccines have been distributed since the rollout started to ramp up in the middle of the year.
It's almost a sense now of the Hunger Games, of people chasing vaccine.
New South Wales has obviously been in the grip of the worst outbreak we have seen in 2021, and vaccines have been variously brought forward or reallocated to rush them to the troubled hotspots. But the extent to which vaccines have been concentrated on New South Wales at the cost of other states may come as a surprise. Back in late June, as Sydney's current outbreak was just taking off, New South Wales was receiving 32% of the national Pfizer allocation through primary care, mostly GPs. That's roughly in line with New South Wales' proportion of the national population. But by last month, its allocation had jumped to 45%. Some of that was thanks to extra vaccines, like the delivery from Poland, which mostly went to New South Wales.
From Warsaw to centres in Western Sydney.
But that's not the whole story, and these figures illustrate the extent to which the New South Wales doses have come at the expense of other states. Consider Victoria, Queensland and Western Australia, which have all seen their allocations fall well below their share of the national population. It is in the federal government-run distribution of Pfizer through the GP network, and now other primary care providers like pharmacies, where there have been huge shifts in supply in favour of New South Wales. With the increasing focus on vaccinating younger people, Pfizer supplies have become even more crucial. The numbers involved are staggering. New South Wales administered 904,184 jabs in just 2 weeks in August, more than double the number in the next biggest state, Victoria. The other states have repeatedly said for some time that they could not get sufficient Pfizer.
We could have had the entire population vaccinated before the virus has arrived in this way. And now I'm very concerned that we may have left it too late.
And those concerns persist, even today.
At the moment, we're still a little bit constrained by supply.
The real-world impact of the shifting of Pfizer vaccines to New South Wales, particularly given the much faster speed with which people can be double vaccinated, is significant. Based on these numbers, for example, it appears Victoria may have missed out on up to 343,000 Pfizer jabs between June and September, Queensland 100,000 jabs, and Western Australia 114,000 jabs. But more troubling is the apparent extra weighting of future Pfizer allocations to New South Wales for the remainder of the year. The Federal Department of Health Horizon Allocation document, updated in late July, forecasts the distribution of various vaccines until the end of December. It shows Victoria, Queensland and Western Australia continuing to receive much less than their population share of vaccines. For example, Victoria would normally get around 82% of New South Wales's allocation, but it is forecast to get between just 66% and 69%. In a statement to 7:30 this afternoon, the Victorian Health Minister said it was, quote, disappointing that the Commonwealth appears to be pursuing a national plan to vaccinate New South Wales at the expense of all other Australians. A spokesperson for Operation COVID Shield, the national body responsible for the rollout, headed by Lieutenant General John Fruin, said that part of the response to the New South Wales outbreak in July and August had involved rapidly bringing 260 GP practices in New South Wales online. To balance this, the spokesperson said, extra doses will be provided to other states, starting with Victoria from September 13. A new forecast of how vaccines will also be shared out will be released shortly. While General Fruin has moved to try to increase the transparency of data about the vaccine rollout, there is still a lot of information we don't know. The Northern Territory government, for example, will not release the vaccination rates for remote communities, preferring to bundle the numbers into broader regions that incorporate whiter, larger and better vaccinated towns. But the revelations of just how the rollout has been shared around the country may increase the pressure on all governments to explain what they have been doing with their vaccines.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.